I personally don't believe that nuclear is logical. Doesn't make sense. And experts now are tending to agree that actually solar is a better choice for most of the world. In fact, because 90% of the world lives on the sun belt, many people believe that solar will make up nearly 90% of global energy within the next 15 years. But still, nuclear is certainly better than coal power. And the world's largest floating nuclear plant with molten salt reactors is coming to the United States. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. This is called the Liberty Program. This initiative seeks to establish a civil nuclear framework, which will be, well, it's kind of an interesting thing. Let's get into it. Core Power, a leading developer in maritime nuclear technologies, announced a pretty interesting initiative to introduce a US anchored floating nuclear power plant by the mid-2030s. So it's going to be coming, they say, in around 10 years from now. Dubbed the Liberty Program, this plan seeks to establish a civil nuclear framework tailored specifically for maritime applications. During a keynote address at the Core Power Summit held in Houston, Texas, CEO Mikhail Bo detailed the company's ambitions for this program. She said the Liberty Program will unlock a market estimated at $2.6 trillion focused on floating power solutions. Now, what we have right now, we have a lot of floating solar. And you might think, oh, if you saw this quote, oh, they're talking about floating solar, but they're not. They're talking about using shipyards for nuclear construction, and that will make nuclear costs lower. Now, whether that's true or not, well, that remains to be seen. Core Power announced their plan to develop a floating nuclear power plant in the United States that will provide 175 gigawatt hours of clean electricity annually. The first phase of the Liberty Program will concentrate on the mass production of floating nuclear power plants around the United States. The only problem I have with this is that nuclear costs will have to come down a lot because right now nuclear is 3 to 5 times more expensive than solar. But that is possible. You never know. The production of these floating nuclear power plants will utilize modular construction techniques drawing on the existing expertise and infrastructure of the established shipbuilding industry. These plants will be designed to function as power barges that can be stationed at ports and coastal areas or positioned further out to sea for larger power generating units. The strategy allows for efficient mass production, allowing a fleet of nuclear floating solar towed to various customer sites without necessitating complex preparations at each location. So the idea is that they'll build all these floating nuclear power plants and simply tow them using a boat to some kind of location in America that is accessible by water. A central shipyard will manage these floating power stations, commissioning, maintenance, refueling, and waste management. A key aspect of this program is the focus on advanced nuclear technology, and the technology is molten salt reactors. Unlike traditional nuclear reactors, these next-generation nuclear reactors, or salt reactors, are designed to operate safely and efficiently at near atmospheric pressures. The idea is to avoid a Fukushima, a Japanese nuclear meltdown, or Chernobyl, where obviously we had that disaster. This innovation reduces the need for emergency exclusion zones, enhancing insurability and operational viability for FNPPs and nuclear-powered commercial vessels. Now, before I get into the rest of the details here, I was thinking to myself, okay, the only problem is most of the population hotspots in America, and to be honest, in most of the world, are located where exactly? Inland or on the coast? Most of the population, the largest, densest population sites are located on the coast. Of course, you've got California, there's San Francisco, San Diego, and Los Angeles, Portland. Most of these cities are on the coast. And the same is on the East Coast, where you've got Florida, Miami, and then it goes all the way up, where you've got New York up the top. And, I get why nuclear would be great, but will people be willing to have these nuclear power plants floating in the ocean near where they live? Would you be willing to do this? I don't think I would personally want to be. Even if it sounds safe, who knows if it actually is. The advanced reactors are expected to offer big advantages in efficiency, allowing ships to operate on a single fuel load for their entire lifespan while minimizing waste output. As a result, nuclear-powered vessels promise to enhance speed, efficiency, and cargo capacity, but could be used by terrorists. I mean, imagine if some kind of group like ISIS or something got hold of one of these nuclear-powered ships and just drove it into, I don't know, a bridge or a city or somewhere and just basically made it explode. It does seem like it could happen. And to me, that's one of my personal concerns about this issue. Core Power collaborates with various developers to optimize reactors for maritime applications, it says. The company aims to begin accepting orders for these nuclear ships by 2028 with an eye toward full commercialization in the following decade. Bo outlined a phased approach leading up to 2030, which includes designing the reactors and establishing the necessary licensing and regulatory frameworks. The second phase of the roadmap will emphasize building a robust supply chain and developing a skilled workforce. So we're a fair way away from this happening at this point in time. Now, the other concern here is this. Most grids around the world they don't get power from one particular source. They get power from lots of different places. So this is why you find solar power plants, new ones, or wind turbines, they're often built, or even big batteries, they're often built, especially big batteries, they're often built on the same location as old coal power plants or old power plants that have been decommissioned because the infrastructure is set up where there's all the cabling and all the grid connection going to that location. But if you put a ship out in the sea, there's no current infrastructure. You would need to build all the infrastructure to send all that electricity into the grid, and that costs a lot of money. So it's not just the cost of the nuclear power plant, it's also the cost of building the infrastructure, building the cables, building the redundancy systems to make this work. And that is why I believe actually having homes with their own batteries is the simplest solution. The grid already supports this. Now, if we actually were able to reduce demand drastically by having vehicle to grid, and eventually most people will have an electric car because they'll be the best choice and it will make the most sense. Most people have an electric car, and then the idea would be to use that to power your home, potentially have batteries at home as well. I'm going to get batteries within the next few weeks. The idea would be that most people in the world eventually would be able to supply the grid with electricity when it needs it, small amounts, and only use small amounts of electricity from the grid when they need it. And that, in my opinion, is a cheaper and much simpler solution than building nuclear ships and then trying to connect them to a grid via undersea cables. But I'm sure I've missed something. Guys, what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments.